Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I share real, emotional stories that touch your heart and stay with you long after the video ends. Today's story is one of those moments that changed everything, quietly, deeply, and unexpectedly that I never imagined my life could feel so fragile. My name is Serena, and at 38, I thought I had life figured out. I believed I had created a life most people dream about. A stable marriage, a home filled with comfort, and a son Leo, whose stubborn independence always made me proud. But life has a way of rearranging itself quietly, without warning. And suddenly, everything you thought was steady begins to feel uncertain, shaky, and fragile. The foundations you trusted so completely start to feel unfamiliar, even fragile. Matthew, my husband, was the embodiment of ambition. His life revolved around work, business trips, meetings, deadlines. Success, stability, and comfort. He provided it all. And yet, comfort does not fill the empty spaces in a heart. Even when he was beside me, he wasn't really there. His mind was always somewhere else, buried in emails, financial reports, market trends. I watched him grow distant, and I could feel it seeping into the quiet corners of our home. Our conversations became rushed. Meals were silent. Nights stretched endlessly. I wandered through the halls of our house like a shadow, surrounded by the trappings of a perfect life, but starved for connection. Then there was Leo, my 20-year-old son, full of energy, spontaneity, and an unwillingness to conform to my expectations. He rejected the traditional path of college and career plans, choosing instead to carve his own way, working tirelessly at a grocery store. He carried the weight of responsibility on his young shoulders, but I admired him for it. Still, I worried he was missing out on being carefree, on being young. That summer was unbearably hot. The kind of heat that made every room oppressive, every breath heavy. I would sit by the window, watching sunlight blur the edges of our neighborhood. The world seeming to slow down in the heat. And in that slow, heavy silence, I felt the emptiness pressing in. A quiet loneliness that seemed to grow day by day. One morning, after Matthew had left for a business trip, the house was silent, too silent. Leo had already gone to work, and I wouldn't see him until noon. I walked through our home, noticing the quiet that now defined it, wondering when we had last felt like a real family. Around noon, Leo returned, drenched in sweat. "Mom, it's ridiculously hot today," he said, dropping his snacks on the counter. He sat across from me, drinking water. The ticking of the clock and the slow, creaking ceiling fan were almost comforting. A reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. Yet even then, silence hung heavily between us, thick with unspoken feelings. Later that afternoon, as I prepared to shower, I heard the water running. Leo was in the bathroom. It was nothing unusual, but it struck me how our lives overlapped without real connection. We were side by side, but miles apart emotionally. I realized how much I missed conversation, laughter, the simple joys of being together. The next day, Matthew left on a week-long business trip. He traveled often, but this time, the emptiness felt heavier. And that's when Leo, unexpectedly, approached me with an idea. "Mom, what if we take a short trip? Just the two of us. A reset." The suggestion struck me more deeply than I expected. Not because it was unusual, but because it reminded me how much we both needed connection. I hesitated, fearing judgment, worrying Matthew would misunderstand. So I smiled and said, "Maybe another time." His disappointment hurt. Yet that evening, the warm glow of the sunset brought us together in a way we hadn't been in years. We talked. Really talked. Childhood memories, silly stories, moments that made us laugh until our eyes watered. It was healing. When I jokingly asked about his love life, Leo laughed but grew quiet soon after. "Sometimes I just wish the house felt like home again," he admitted softly. Those words cut through me. He felt the emptiness too. That night, he gently asked why I seemed distant, why I didn't smile the way I used to. For the first time in years, I stopped pretending. I shared my loneliness, my fear of drifting apart from him and his father. He didn't judge. He didn't shame me. He just placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Mom, I'm here." And for the first time in a long time, I cried that in the days that followed, the house felt different. Not tense, but reflective. I realized that emotional intensity does not require physical action. Nothing inappropriate had happened, but the closeness, honesty, and vulnerability had awakened something I had ignored for years. I needed help. I needed boundaries. I needed to heal. And Leo did too. When Matthew returned, I could no longer pretend. I told him the truth about the loneliness, the distance, the quiet sadness that had settled over our family. I didn't know, he whispered. He had believed that providing was enough. He hadn't realized how far apart we had drifted, how Leo struggled quietly, how our home had become a space of silence instead of warmth. In the weeks that followed, we began rebuilding. Matthew cut back on travel. I started therapy to confront years of emotional exhaustion. Leo moved into his own apartment, not out of anger, but to grow, to find his own life beyond the quiet struggles at home. We started weekly family dinners. Real conversations. Laughter returned. Emotional distance slowly gave way to healing. I learned that silence can be louder than any argument, that loneliness does not indicate weakness but humanity, and that emotional boundaries are as vital as physical ones. I still love Matthew. Not perfectly, but honestly. And I love Leo, not as a placeholder for what was missing, but as my son, deserving of his own life free from my burdens. Our family isn't perfect. It isn't what it once was. But it is healing. And sometimes healing is more powerful than perfection. If you've ever felt invisible, if your home feels quiet in all the wrong ways, if you're drifting from people you love, speak up. Ask for help. Heal before emotional distance becomes emotional collapse. Thank you for staying with me. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that heal, stories that teach, and stories that remind us we are never truly alone.